This is a show about a face-changing alien who travels time and space in a police box. You would think there wouldn't be many things that could really throw the way you see it. And then we come along with one of these lists. I'm Sean Ferrick for Who Culture, and here are 10 Doctor Who moments impossible to watch the same after this. Number 10. Rose saves the day on the same street her father died. At the beginning of Father's Day, the Doctor takes Rose back in time to witness the moment of her father's death on Jordan Road. We then see the pair visit the street again where Rose saves her old man's life. This wouldn't be the last time Jordan Road appeared in the show, and in fact it has quite a special connection with the series finale, The Parting of the Ways. When the TARDIS takes Rose back home midway through that episode, it lands right opposite the corner where Pete was originally killed. Meanwhile, the cafe where she catches up with Jackie and Mickey is the boarded up building she was stood in front of with the Doctor in Father's Day. It may have been the case of the crew going back to a tried and tested location for the sake of convenience, rather than building an intentional connection between Father's Day and The Parting of the Ways. Indeed, Rose makes no reference to it being the same street. Whatever the case, it's fitting that she should save the day from this spot, given that it's the events of Father's Day that ultimately inspired Jackie to help her with that massive yellow recovery truck. Number 9. The footage in the solitract plane is flipped. With its flesh-eating moths, frog on a chair, and mirror universes, It Takes You Away was one of the more imaginative episodes of Season 11. It's also one of the most visually interesting thanks to a clever little trick deployed by director Jamie Childs. The solitract plane seen in this episode is a world which strongly resembles our own, but isn't quite the same. It's a world of impossibilities and contradictions where people we've lost are still alive, for instance. The portal to the solitract plane is found within a mirror, and this neatly encapsulates the idea that it's a slightly off version of our own reality. It's not something that's immediately apparent, but if you watch closely, you'll notice that all of the scenes set within the solitract plane have been flipped in post-production, as though they're inside a mirror. Take a look at Jodie Whittaker's hair parting, which is usually on the right but temporarily switches to the left, or the Slayer text on Eric's t-shirt, which is inverted during the solitract set scenes. It's a very subtle touch, but a cool one nonetheless, and once you've noticed it, you'll never watch the episode in the same way again. Number 8. Exploding Daleks were mistaken for a terrorist attack. Anyone who's seen Remembrance of the Daleks will know it's a pretty explosive episode with battles and set pieces galore, and production-wise this had some rather unexpected ramifications. The story was filmed in various London locations, including a road called Windmill Walk. This was the site of the climactic battle between the Imperial and Renegade Daleks, during which multiple Daleks are blown to smithereens. Following an early victory for the Renegade Daleks, the Imperials deploy their secret weapon, the tank-like Special Weapons Dalek. But this wasn't the only specialist called to the scene. Indeed, the explosions quickly attracted the attention of the emergency services, who feared that they were part of a terrorist attack. At the time the serial was shot in April 1988, tensions were still high in Northern Ireland, and the UK had already been subject to multiple IRA bombings. There was a very real possibility of further action, and the police were on standby to respond. Of course, in this particular case, there was nothing to worry about, but the fact that the police were called in the first place just goes to show how realistic these explosions were, and makes the sequence all the more hair-raising to watch. Number 7. Catherine Tate didn't know the Sontarans were actors. On-screen, Donna was somewhat perplexed by the Sontarans, pronouncing Sontaran as Sontaran, and behind the scenes, things weren't much different. As Catherine Tate revealed in a 2008 interview with Jonathan Ross, she didn't really initialize that the potato-headed aliens were played by actors. 2 weeks into filming, I realized there's someone in it, she recalled, and then they take their helmet off and Bob pops out. I nearly died. Prior to this, Tate was under the impression that the Sontarans were props that ran on electricity. Now, this might seem a little far-fetched at first, but when you consider that Donna never encountered a Sontaran with its helmet off, it's not hard to see how she might have reached that conclusion. In any case, it certainly makes sense you see Donna's Sontaran scenes in a different light, particularly the moment in The Poison Sky where she hits one in the back of the neck. And who knows, maybe Tate had a similar experience filming with Beat the Meat in the 60th anniversary specials. Was that shot in the latest trailer her genuine reaction of meeting the prop? Time will tell. Number 6. Unit headquarters is a restaurant? Kate Stewart's return in Flux was one of the Chibnall era's best kept secrets, but how did they manage to keep it under wraps for so long? Well, it helped that the majority of Kate's scenes in Flux, and subsequently The Power of the Doctor, took place indoors. They weren't all filmed in a studio, however, and the location of the 2017 Unit headquarters, the site of Kate's iconic showdown with the Grand Serpent in Survivors of the Flux, was actually filmed in a place you'd least expect Unit HQ to be, a former burger and lobster restaurant. A quick Google search shows that the room behind the Grand Serpent's office used to be full of chairs and tables prior to the restaurant's closure in 2016. In fact, the bar is still visible visible just behind Kate, hence why in one promo pic she looks like she's about to compete in MasterChef, and this was meant to be before Unit was hit by budget cuts. Number 5. The 8th Doctor's regeneration elixir wasn't what it seemed. For years, the 8th Doctor's regeneration remained a mystery. That was until the 2013 minisode The Night of the Doctor, which showed it was quite an unusual affair. Whereas most Doctors regenerate without any outside interference, the 8th Doctor accepted a potion offered to him by the Sisterhood of Karn to aid his transition into the War Doctor. But what did this potion contain? On screen, all we're told is that it's a special elixir designed to turn the Doctor into a warrior, but Stephen Moffat's novelization of The Day of the Doctor, which includes a chapter based on The Night of the Doctor, suggests something very different. In an aside with one of the novelization's many narrators, spoilers, Sisterhood leader Ohila reveals that the Doctor's regeneration elixir was in fact, drumroll please, lemonade and ice. I was in a hurry, Ohila reveals, and it needed to look dramatic. She goes on to explain that the elixir merely served as a placebo to awaken something in the Doctor that had been there all along. Whether or not you consider this retcon canon, it certainly makes you look at The Night of the Doctor in a very different way. Number 4. The Doctor and Missy teleport to Cardiff. Though many Doctor Who stories have been set in London, not all of them were filmed there. In the revived series, which is filming based in Cardiff, it's much more convenient and cost-effective to fake it. So if a modern Who scene takes place in London, chances are it was actually filmed in Cardiff. That said, sometimes the production team has no choice but to head to the capital, usually when recognisable landmarks such as the London Eye, Big Ben and the Shard are involved. This was the case for Rose, Aliens of London and the Bells of St. John, and again for Dark Water, Death in Heaven. The epic Series 8 finale required a Cyberman set piece outside St. Paul's Cathedral in a tribute to 1969's The Invasion. The cathedral also provided the backdrop to the game-changing reveal that Missy is the Master. But it wasn't practical to shoot the continuation of this cliffhanger in such a public and expensive location. The solution? To capture the first 20 seconds or so in London, then sneakily switch to Cardiff halfway through. In the opening scene of Death in Heaven, immediately after the titles, that's exactly what happens. It's such a well-disguised cut that you barely even notice. But once you have it, you'll never unsee it. Number 3. Matt Smith's second Deep Breath cameo. One of the key themes of Deep Breath is identity. We see this most clearly through the idea of Madame Vastra's veil, one of the smartest metaphors for regeneration ever devised. I wear a veil as he wore a face, she tells Clara, to be accepted. Despite a new outward appearance and a rather rocky regeneration, the Doctor is, at heart, the same person, and nowhere is this idea more reinforced than in the story's penultimate scene, which sees the 11th Doctor appear one last time. But that's not the only time he crops up in this episode. In fact, the 11th Doctor's face can be glimpsed much earlier when the 12th Doctor unmasks himself in the half-face man's lair, removing a mask that was clearly made for Matt Smith. Remarkably, this wasn't actually done deliberately. The story goes that the production team just picked a mask at random, only later realizing what they'd done. Fortunately, it ties into the episode's themes perfectly, a moment of the Doctor literally shedding his old face while proving that he's still the same person underneath. Number 2. Tom Baker watched his most harrowing moment with some fans. The cliffhanger to The Deadly Assassin Part 3 is one of the most frightening Doctor Who moments ever committed to screen. It proved so controversial that campaigner Mary Whitehouse successfully convinced the BBC to re-edit it for repeat showings. And Whitehouse wasn't the only one with concerns. The cliffhanger, which sees the ruthless Chancellor Goth attempt to drown the Doctor in the Matrix, also had a lasting effect on Tom Baker, who felt that his genuine fear of drowning made him overdo the terror. To make matters worse, Baker wasn't sure whether he'd be able to watch the episode when it aired, as he was on the road at the time. So what did he do? Why, he dropped in on a random fan's house and watched it with them, of course. Baker recalled this incident in his 1997 autobiography, Who on Earth is Tom Baker, where he said, "As a young man of about 30 opened the door to me and I asked, 'Do you watch Doctor Who in this house by any chance?' For a split second the young man looked puzzled, and then he smiled, opened the door wide and simply said, 'Come in, Doctor,' and in I went." Baker then later explained how watching the episode with this man's 2 sons significantly eased his anxieties. It's a heartwarming anecdote that makes this moment a bit less terrifying to watch. Number 1. The Doctor Who exhibition exists in the Torchwood universe? As Doctor Who's first full spin-off, it was important to establish that Torchwood takes place in the same universe as its parent show. For the most part, Series 1 opener Everything Changes does this admirably, but there's one moment that does spoil the illusion, and it relates to one of of the other things commissioned in response to the success of revived Who's first series, Doctor Who Up Close. Doctor Who Up Close was an exhibition based in Cardiff, which gave visitors a closer look at various props and costumes from the early years of modern Who. By the time Everything Changes went before cameras, Doctor Who Up Close was in full swing, which led to the rather amusing mistake of a poster for the exhibition appearing in the background of certain shots. Unfortunately, the Torchwood production team failed to notice this, even though the poster is clearly blatantly visible in the scene. Does this mean that Doctor Who exists in the Torchwood universe? Is it a trap designed to trick enemies of the Doctor? A side effect of the nearby rift? It's enough to make your head explode just thinking of it. Thanks so much everyone for watching this video. We had so much fun making it. You can follow myself at Sean Ferrick on the various socials, and of course, look after yourselves until I'm talking to you again. Be kind and lead with kindness. Show love, show things that the Doctor will be proud of, and above all else, keep things wibbly wobbly. Thanks.